And we're going to continue with the 42nd chapter of A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, called War. Basically, even with all of the technological advances that the boss included, history still went the way that history goes. Mordred and Sir Agravain told Arthur about Guinevere, and a bunch of people got killed. So now the church is back in charge, as Clarence is explaining to the boss. Stuff! With our deadly scientific war material and our host of trained... Save your breath, we haven't 60 faithful left. What are you saying? Our schools, our colleges, our vast workshops, our... When those nights come, those establishments will empty themselves and go over to the enemy. Did you think you had educated the superstition out of those people? I certainly did think it. Well then, you may unthink it. They stood every strain easily, until the interdict. Since then they merely put on a bold outside. At heart they are quaking. Make up your mind to it. When the armies come, the mask will fall. It's hard news. We are lost. They will turn our own science against us. No, they won't. Why? Because I and a handful of the faithful have blocked that game. I'll tell you what I've done, and what moved me to it. Smart as you are, the church was smarter. It was the church that sent you cruising through her servants, the doctors. Clarence! It's the truth, I know it. Every officer of your ship was the church's picked servant, and so was every man of the crew. Oh, come! It is just as I tell you. I did not find out these things at once, but I found them out finally. Did you send me verbal information by the commander of the ship to effect that upon his return with supplies you were going to leave Cadiz? Cadiz? I haven't been to Cadiz at all. Going to leave Cadiz and cruise in distant seas indefinitely for the health of your family? Did you send me that word? Of course not. I wouldn't have written, would I? Or, of course not. I would have written, wouldn't I? Naturally. I was troubled and suspicious when the commander sailed again. I managed to ship a spy with him. I have never heard of vessel or spy since. I gave myself 2 weeks to hear from you. I gave myself 2 weeks to hear from you in. Then I resolved to send a ship to Cadiz. There was a reason why I didn't. What was that? Our navy had suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. Also as suddenly and mysteriously, the railway and the telegraph and the telephone service ceased. The men all deserted, poles were cut down, the church laid a ban upon the electric light. I had to be up and doing, and straight off. Your life was safe. Nobody in these kingdoms but Merlin would venture to touch such a magician as you without 10,000 men at his back. I had nothing to think of but how to put preparations in the best trim against your coming. I felt safe myself. Nobody would be anxious to touch a pet of yours. So this is what I did. From our various works I selected all the men, boys I mean, whose faithfulness under whatsoever pressure I could swear to, and I called them together secretly and gave them their instructions. There are 52 of them, none younger than 14, and none above 17 years old. Why did you select boys? Because all others were born in an atmosphere of superstition and reared in it. It is in their blood and bones. We imagined we had educated it out of them. They thought so too. The interdict woke them up like a thunderclap. It revealed them to themselves, and it revealed them to me too. With boys it was different. Such as have been under our training from 7 to 10 years have had no acquaintance with the church's terrors. And it was among these that I found my 52. As a next move I paid a private visit to the old cave of Merlin's. Not the small one, the big one. Yes, the one where we secretly established our first great electric plant, when I was projecting a miracle. Just so. And as that miracle hadn't become necessary then, I thought it might be a good idea to utilize the plant now. I've provisioned the cave for a siege. Good idea, a first-rate idea. I think so. I placed 4 of my boys there as a guard, inside and out of sight. Nobody was to be hurt while outside, but any attempt to enter, well, we said, just let anybody try it. Then I went out into the hills and uncovered and cut the secret wires which connected your bedroom with the wires that go to the dynamite deposits. under all our vast factories, mills, workshops, magazines, etc. And about midnight, I and my boys turned out, connected the wire with the cave, and nobody but you and I suspects where the other end of it goes to. We laid it underground, of course, and it was all finished in a couple hours or so. We shan't have to leave our fortress now when we want to blow up our civilization. It was the right move, and the natural one. A military necessity. And it changed condition of things. Well, what changes have come? We expected to be besieged in the palace some time or other, but however, go on. Next, we built a wire fence. Wire fence? Yes, you dropped the hint of it yourself 2 or 3 years ago. Oh, I remember the time the church tried her strength against us the first time, and presently thought it wise to wait for a hopefuler season. For a hopefuler season. Well, how have you arranged the fence? I start 12 immensely strong wires, naked, not insulated, from a big dynamo in the cave. Dynamo with no brushes except a positive and a negative one. Yes, that's right. The wires go out from the cave and fence in a circle of level ground 100 yards in diameter. They make 12 independent fences 10 feet apart. That is to say, 12 circles within circles, and their ends come into the cave again. Right, go on. The fences are fastened to heavy oaken posts, only 3 feet apart, and these posts are sunk 5 feet in the ground. That's good and strong. Yes, the wires have no ground connection outside the cave. They go out from the positive brush of the dynamo. There is a ground connection through the negative brush. The other end of the wire returned to the cave, and each is grounded independently. Oh no, that won't do. Why? It's too expensive. Uses up force for nothing. You don't want any ground connection except the one through the negative brush. The other end of every wire must be brought back into the cave and fastened independently and without any ground connection. Now then, observe the economy of it. A cavalry charge hurls itself against the fence. You are using no power, you are spending no money, for there is only one ground connection till those horses come against the wire. The moment they touch it, they form a connection with the negative brush through the ground and drop dead. Don't you see? You are using no energy until it is needed. Your lightning is there and ready like the load in a gun. But it isn't costing you a cent till you touch it off. Oh yes, the single ground connection. Of course, I don't know how I overlooked that. It's not only cheaper, but it's more effectual than the other way. For if the wires break or get tangled, no harm is done. No, especially if we have a telltale in the cave and disconnect the broken wire. Well, go on, the Gatlings. Yes, that's arranged. In the center of the inner circle, on a spacious platform 6 feet high, I've grouped a battery of 13 Gatling guns and provided plenty of ammunition. That's it. They command every approach, and when the church's knights arrive, there's going to be music. The brow of the precipice over the cave. I've got a wire fence there, and a Gatling. They won't drop any rocks down on us. Well, and the glass-cylinder dynamite torpedoes? That's attended to. It's the prettiest garden that was ever planted. It's a belt 40 feet wide and goes around the outer fence. Distance between it and the fence 100 yards. Kind of neutral ground that space is. There isn't a single square yard of that whole belt is equipped with a torpedo. We laid them on the surface of the ground and sprinkled a layer of sand over them. It's an innocent-looking garden. But you let a man start in to hoe at once, and you'll see. You tested the torpedoes? Well, I wasn't going to, but why? Why, it's an immense oversight not to apply a test. Yes, I know. But they're all right. I laid a few in the public road beyond our line, and they've been tested. Oh, that alters the case. Who did it? A church committee. How kind. Yes, they came to command us to make submission. You see, they really didn't come to test the torpedoes. That was merely an incident. Did the committee make a report? Yes, they made one. You could have heard it made. Unanimous? That was the nature of it. After that, I put up some signs for the protection of future committees, and we have had no intruders since. Clarence, you've done a world of work and done it perfectly. We had plenty of time for it. There wasn't any occasion for hurry. We sat silent a while, thinking. Then my mind was made up, and I said, "Yes, everything is ready. Everything is ship-shape. No detail is wanting. I know what to do now." "So do I." "Sit down and wait." "No, sir! Rise up and strike." "Do you mean it?" "Yes, indeed. The defense isn't in my line, and the offense is. That is, when I hold a fair hand. 2/3 as good a hand as the enemy. Oh, yes, we'll rise up and strike. That's our game." 100 to 1, you are right. When does the performance begin? "Now we'll proclaim the Republic." "Well, that will precipitate things, sure enough." "It will make them buzz, I tell you. England will be a hornet's nest before noon tomorrow if the Church's hand hasn't lost its cunning, and we know it hasn't. Now you write, and I'll dictate thus. Proclamation. Be it known to all. Whereas the king having died and left no heir, it becomes my duty to continue the executive authority vested in me until a government shall have been created and set in motion. The monarchy has lapsed and no longer exists. By consequence, all political power has reverted to its original source, the people of the nation. With the monarchy, its several adjuncts died also. Wherefore there is no longer a nobility, no longer a privileged class, and no longer an established church. All men are become exactly equal. They are upon one common level, and religion is free. A republic is hereby proclaimed as being the natural estate of a nation when other authority has ceased. It is the duty of the British people to meet together immediately, and by their votes elect representatives and deliver into their hands the government. I signed it the boss and dated it from Merlin's cave. Clarence said, "Why, that tells where we are and invites them to call right away." "That's the idea. We strike by the proclamation. Then it's their innings. Now, have the thing set up and printed and posted right off. That is, give the order. Then, if you've got a couple of bicycles handy at the foot of the hill, ho for Merlin's cave. I shall be ready in 10 minutes. What a cyclone there is going to be tomorrow when this piece of paper gets to work. It's a pleasant old palace, this is. I wonder if we shall ever again, but never mind about that." And that is the end of chapter 42.